Let us continue with the 8 consciousnesses. And we've been talking for about 20 hours already on the same subject. And we have come to the last one, the 8th consciousness, which is the alaya consciousness, alaya vijnana. And I plan to finish it in a few more lectures, and then we're going to gather it in a video. So in the last session, we're talking about the 8 consciousness has 3 kinds of important characteristics. It is its ability to store all the bija, all the karmic seeds, all the karmic energy, the ability to store. What is in store? In store is all the karmic energy of all the previous mentioned consciousnesses, all the 7 consciousnesses. It is a repository and a receptacle of all the karmic seeds of the first 5 perceptual consciousnesses, the mano consciousness, which is the 6th, and the 7th consciousness, which is the ego consciousness. So what's in store is that. And the 3rd, it is a repository also for the 7th consciousness, the ego consciousness. So the alaya consciousness, we call it the alaya vijnana, arises from moment to moment. It's never stopped, together with all the other consciousnesses, with all their functions and all their cognitive formations, and all that constitutes one's existence. So the 8th consciousness is a non-stop consciousness. The eyes can stop sometimes when you're sleeping. The ears, the nose, the tongue stop. But the 3 consciousnesses never stop. The mano, the 6th consciousness, never stops. The 7th consciousness, the ego consciousness, never stops. That's the reason why we were born with the ego. You and I, we may not be aware of it. You and I, we are born with that ego. And that ego is the problem. It's the culprit that's responsible for our samsara. And also the 8th consciousness is non-stop. And Buddha Sakyamuni, in the first few years, the Buddha, in the first few years of his Dharma lectures, Dharma promotion, he didn't mention anything about the 8th consciousness, not even the 7th consciousness. Because the 8th consciousness, the alaya consciousness, is very subtle. That's the reason why he said the storehouse consciousness is very deep and subtle. All the seeds are like a torrential flow, like the waterfall, the Niagara Fall. It's all the water coming down. It's a torrential flow. I do not explain it to the ignorant, for fear they will cling to it and consider it as a self. So in the first few years of his lectures, he didn't mention alaya consciousness because it's so subtle and deep. When you produce a thought, for example, motivated by greed, it plants a seed in a series of dharmas, in a series of phenomena in the alaya vijnana. Such a seed is not a thing. When we say a seed, it's just an analogy. It's a metaphorical analogy. A seed is not a seed of a fruit, of a plant, of a tree. A seed is a latent kind of energy. It plants a seed in a series of phenomena, dharmas, in the alaya vijnana. Such a seed is not a thing. It's not a matter. Such a seed is not a matter. And it's not a thing in itself, but merely some energy that becomes latent in the mind. This energy, the word that follows it is quite important to understand, perfumes the subsequent flow. It affects the subsequent flow of thoughts and may result in the performance of an action or a deed or a speech. What is perfume? What's the meaning of perfume? It perfumes all the other seeds. So in other words, what is in store in your alaya consciousness, all the energy there is always affected by your subsequent thought, by your subsequent action, by your subsequent speech. So whatever you think affects what is already latent in your repository of energy. So that's the reason why we have to be very mindful of our thought. If in your thought is always a thought of depression, a thought of fear, a thought of phobia, a thought of anxiety, a thought of greediness, hatred, jealousy, all these, you think it's just a thought, it doesn't matter? You just think about it, it doesn't matter? No, it perfumes your energy inside of you, in your receptacle of latent energy. That's the reason why if you have a thought of, say, a sensuous thought, you're always thinking of the opposite sex. And you always think about it, and then in your mass media, you get to be obsessed with it. In whatever mass media, you're obsessed with that kind of thought. You think it's okay? No. It perfumes the energy inside you, in you, until you carry it into action. When the perfuming is active, actually it affects the physiological part of the body too, because it starts to produce all kinds of hormones. And when these hormones build up, you have to release the hormones because you have a lot of pressure for that hormones. So you are a victim of this perfuming. And you think that, and when your latent energy is, I'm just giving you an example of sensuous desires, for example. If you always perfume that, it affects your physiological structure. It produces the hormone that builds up the pressure. And until you can't take it anymore, it has to be released. And when you release, you feel, oh, I'm relieved. But it's just a building up of the hormones of the structure. You're just building up that greediness, obsession. And when you build this up, all your latent energy of that kind of thinking is always perfuming subsequent actions. So that's the reason why a gambler is always perfuming the subsequent thought. He can never get away from gambling. That gambling instinct, that gambling obsession. I know people who gamble away millions of dollars in a night. They declare bankrupt, overnight declare bankrupt. All this capital, all these investments that he laboriously acquired through his own efforts for many years, he squandered away on one casino table. He even borrowing documents. He forgot about his wife, his kids, his family, his company. He forgot everything about that because he's so obsessed with the perfuming. Very dangerous. Now you know, the Buddha said, watch out your thought. You're perfuming subsequent action flow, subsequent thought. Don't let that perfume you. How many people would avoid that taboo, would avoid that kind of perfuming? They thought it's good. When you're drinking your alcohol, you think it's good. But you're obsessing with it until you lost everything, until you become so intoxicated. That's another problem. I still remember when I was many years ago, I don't know, about 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I was an auditor. I've been auditing I audited many companies, different variety of companies. I audit timber company, flower making company, and we name them. And one of the specialty that I am auditing is on the legal account, the lawyer's account. We call it the trust account. a trust account. Every lawyer has a trust account because all their clients put the money in trust in the lawyer's account. And I don't know, my boss gave me all kinds of legal firms until I specialized in checking trust account. And I came to this company, this lawyer, a very famous lawyer. He was a judge, very famous judge, famous lawyer. And at the time he was about 45 years old. And somehow he got into drinking problem. A very famous, very intelligent lawyer got into drinking problem. And for a number of years, I went into his company, and every time when I went into this company to do an audit, I feel really sorry about it. Because I know the history of this lawyer. And when he got into the drinking problem, when I entered his company to do the audit, there was one secretary in there. It used to have 300 lawyers working, and I don't know, 200 secretaries, you know. And now he boiled down to only one secretary and himself. And even that secretary only working part-time. So I was in there, and then I said, "Where are the books?" And they said, "Oh, these are the books." And I checked the books. It's all confusing. And he even said, "I feel sorry. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where things are. You know, where those files are put." Because he was drinking all the time. He was obsessed. All his latent energy was perfumed with drinking. And I feel absolutely sorry. And he was a kind man. He was sitting there, you know, and he was talking to me and said, "I didn't know where to start the audit." And I still feel sorry when I'm talking about it. And then I left the company. Of course, I came to Vancouver. I didn't know what happened to him. I still remember the face of that a famous judge before, and a very famous lawyer. And he was so obsessed with drinking. And he knew it was wrong, but he was perfumed by it. So watch your mind. That's the reason why we say when you're meditating, you are training your mindfulness. Why are we meditating? You want to put your thought under control. Because our thoughts have not been under our control. That's why you get mad. That's why you get obsession. That's why you take drugs. Because you can't control yourself. You see how the Buddha can help? The Buddha's teaching can help? It teaches you how to get to know yourself. All right? So this energy perfumes the subsequent flow of thoughts and may result in the performance of an action or speech. All experiences and actions produce bija. That word bija, seeds. That's a Sanskrit word, bija. Using that Sanskrit bija as impressions stored in the alaya consciousness. Alaya, which Nanda has two divisions, the perceiving part and the perceived part. That is the subject part and the object part. The perceiving part, the ability of alaya consciousness to perceive, to understand, to cognize, is linked to the seven consciousness. It is always linked to the ego. That perceiving part is always linked to the ego. So it sees things with the ego. And the being perceived part, the object part, is linked to the six consciousness and the five perceptual consciousnesses. In other words, what the six consciousness, the mano, is interacting, is doing, is all being seen, becomes the objects of the eight consciousness. And all these perceptual consciousnesses, the first five consciousness, also become the object, the perceived part of the alaya consciousness. So they all link together. And I would like to do a little more detail in the object part, the perceived part. The perceiving part is what the alaya consciousness can see, the subject, right? And what does the alaya consciousness see? Well, we say this link to the sixth consciousness and the first five perceptual consciousnesses. And I think that's not clear enough. Let's examine in a little bit detail. What are the objects of the eighth consciousness, the alaya consciousness. What are the objects? Alaya Vijnana, the eighth consciousness, general characteristics. Now we're talking about what? Talking about the objects of the alaya consciousness. How does your repository, the receptacle of all the energy interact with what objects are there? The body, the bija, and the outside world. The body and the bija, the seeds are the latent energy, right? The latent energy. The body is your own body. That is what? That is the alaya vijnana internally, you yourself or individually, forms the body and the bija. So individually, the perceived world is broken down into individual and collective. Individually, 自己所, collectively, 共所. What is the alaya consciousness perceiving as the outside world? The alaya consciousness perceives your own body. And your own body is formed individually by your alaya consciousness. Not only that, what is latent, hidden in you is also the perceived part of your alaya consciousness. Some people say, where would I come from? Who created me? Am I created by God? They always say, who created me? Who created my body? Who created my thinking? The Buddha said, you're created by your own alaya vijnana. You're created by your own latent energy, apparent energy. Because you have been accumulating all these latent energy from timeless beginning, from eons of lives ago, from thousands of reincarnations ago. And who created your body? Not God. Your alaya consciousness, you individually created your own body. And this body that you have now is only one lifetime of this creation. And this creation has been carried forward from previous creation. And why do you have your body? Why do you have your kind of body, which is distinct from other people's body? Why do you have your kind of latent energy, karmic energy, which is different from other latent energy? Why? Because everybody's latent energy is not the same. Why am I looking more beautiful than others? Or why am I looking more ugly than the others? Why am I richer? Why am I poorer? Why do I have suffer from bad health? Why am I have a broken family? What kind of destiny I'm facing? How come mine is different from you? Because your alaya consciousness is not the same. And that alaya consciousness has been carried forward from lives and lives ago. It's been perfuming. It's been perfuming for many, many lives. So are you going to watch how you're going to be perfumed? How you're going to be affected? Or you are still egoistic, greedy, jealous, depression, hatred. You want to still carry out all this perfuming? Stop the perfuming. Stop the polluted, tainted perfuming. Start with the purification. When the perfuming is changed into purification, you are on your way to sainthood. You're on your way to be detached from this perfuming. You're on your way to get to nirvana. You're walking the path of enlightenment. Don't you want to walk that path? Or you still want to get down the path of perfuming? Two roads confronted you. One is going down to being perfumed. We call it perfumation. Is that the noun for perfume? Is it perfumation or perfuming? Is that the word? Perfumation or perfuming? This is the path of perfuming. This is the path of what? Purification. Two roads diverge into the wood. Which roads I would take? That is by Robert Frost. Very famous poem. I like that poem. Check into that poem. It's it's synchronized with some of the Buddhist teaching. Two roads diverge into the road. Which road would you take? Usually people take the road of perfuming and not the road of purification. So your body, your karma, is created by you, not by a creator. How about the outside world? Your alive consciousness, you also watch the outside world other than watching your own body, right? You also have the outside world. Who created this outside world? Collectively. Who created this meditation hall collectively? Is it by a creator? Is the construction company the creator? Are the donors the creator? No. They are only one of the causes that contribute to the creation. There's no such thing as the sole creator. You, me, all of us created this hall. Not by God. We created this. Created out of what? Out of a lot of causes and perfumations and purifications, a lot of the karmic energy that comes together to create this. I still remember 37 years ago, I only have a half an acre of dirt sitting in here. Half an acre. I was walking. I still remember when I closed my eyes, I was still walking. I was walking on this dirt with, I think with two other guys, with one guy and one lady. And I still remember clearly in my mind that there was a rainy day with drizzles, not too much rain, but with drizzles. And I was wearing a rubber boots. And my boots got stuck in the soil. I have to pull out my rubber boots. I still remember that day when I walked this dirt. And I said, how can I make these things happen? That it will become it will become a temple. That's the thought triggers in my mind. And then, who triggers that thought? It's the alive consciousness, working with the sixth consciousness, working with the seventh consciousness. At that time, because my purification process is not good, when I say, if I can build this temple, then I can benefit a lot of other people, then all this merits will come to me. I would be benefited by it because I'm helping. When I'm helping others, the Buddha said, you'll be helped too. So I sort of egoistically I want to be better. I want to have a lot of merits. I still have the greediness of acquiring. I should let that go. Now I know that I should let that go too. It's difficult though. But that's the first point to start. All right, so how does the creation of this meditation hall come into being? It's from a thought. Not only of my own thought, it's a thought from all these two other guys that I was walking with, and later from 100 people who's working with us, and later with 200 people who are donors, and later with the construction company, and later with all these people who are involved in this. So this is created by what? By a collective karmic energy. Not by one single creator. And at the same time, I can always think of an analogy that is, when I was walking on this piece of land, I could be thinking of how to build a casino on which I can acquire a lot of people gambling in here. And as the boss of a casino, I will never lose. Based on probability, I always win. So if I form a casino on which people can come in for gambling, then I will be a multi-millionaire. I will be making a lot of money. Why don't I do that? But there's another concept. Which road do I take? I take this road. I don't want to take the other road. So who created this? Who created the whole world? The alive consciousness, collectively. Your alive consciousness, with my alive consciousness, with millions of other alive consciousness, we created the world. Who created the airplane? Not the company, not the airplane company. We cannot trace the first cause. We cannot. There's no way we can trace the first cause. Yeah, we can trace the first cause if we really have some sophisticated computer until we trace, not the first one, to trace a more remote, the remote cause with another remote cause with another remote cause. If you want to trace that, maybe if science and technologies can advance to such a point that we can always trace remote causes, that we may be able to do that. But it takes a long time. And by the time you really trace some remote cause, you are dead already. So who cares about remote cause? And there's no point in taking remote causes. Chicken and egg. Where does chicken come from? Where does the egg come from? Right now, what we do, get onto the road first. So I only have begun. I've just finished one slide, and then bang, time's up. So it's not amazing that I already have talked for 20 hours and haven't finished. I should talk for another 30 hours, but I want to finish it in 5 sessions. So today I'm only talking about the perceiving and the being perceived. I've been talking about general characteristics like the alive consciousness can store what is in store, and the ego that is in store. And who created this world? You always think, who created this world? Collectively by alive consciousness. Where does alive consciousness come from? It comes from causality. It comes from misunderstanding.